This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The Islamic Relief Organization inside Israel is cooperating with the Higher Arab Monitoring Committee in Israel to transport aid to the Palestinian territories through the Israeli roadblocks and crossings that are dispersed throughout the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. This comes amidst a donation campaign being organized in villages and towns throughout Israel to support the Palestinian people during the imposed siege of Hamas. Details with Shireen Yunus.
The Palestinian economic crisis, which has deteriorated as a result of the Israeli and international imposed boycott of the Hamas government, compelled the Arab communities in Israel, represented by the Higher Arab Monitoring Committee and the Islamic Relief Organization, to organize a donation campaign in Arab towns and villages in solidarity with their brothers in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip.
Today, amidst attempts to starve the Palestinians and bring them to their knees, the Higher Committee decided to activate its members in order to assist with supplies and send a message that this siege should be broken.
وفيما كانت هذه الشاحنات تنتظر الضوء الأخضر من قبل سلطات. These trucks are waiting for the green light from the Israeli Occupation Authority to allow them to transport food and daily necessities. Dozens of other trucks drove through the Jalama crossing in Jenin to distribute goods throughout other cities in the West Bank and at the Karni crossing in the Gaza Strip.
عند قطاع غزة.
وفي نفس الوقت نحن مواصلون.
While we continue this relief program, in the coming days, there will be another campaign to collect clothes and medicine.
ملابس وحملات لجمع أدوية.
Campaigns like this one may contribute to a certain extent to temporarily improve the situation inside the Palestinian territories. However, without a doubt, it will not decrease the large amount of suffering that demands both Arab and international intervention. In addition to the continued political and economic siege, what has made matters worse is the freezing of Palestinian tax revenues in Israel, the suffering that does not stop even for one day, the policy of closures and prohibiting Palestinian workers from going into Israeli villages to work.
I have a son who is a senior in high school. I swear to God, his tutor has been helping him for the past 4 months. I don't want my son's education to be wasted, despite the difficult times we're going through.
The economic condition is difficult and experiencing a real crisis in all areas, including the health and social sectors. This situation compelled these citizens to hold a hunger strike while they held a sit-in at one of the medical centers.
We have been here for 7 days. We are sending 2 messages. The first is that we are against the siege being imposed on us by Israel and the rest of the world.
أما الرسالة الثانية فهي دعوة.
This second message is an appeal for an inter-Palestinian dialogue, which is the main key to finding all the solutions.
قناة أبو ظبي جنين.
In the Palestinian territories, armed clashes erupted again between members of the Hamas and Fatah movements. Hamas members opened fire on a funeral procession for 2 members of Fatah in Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip. This happened despite appeals by both groups to remain calm and practice self-restraint.
Great efforts are being exerted to contain the crisis between activists of the Hamas and Fatah movements in Gaza. Armed clashes caused the killing of 3 people yesterday, and today 9 people were injured in renewed reciprocal violence. The Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, who expressed his regret over what happened, gave orders to the security forces to deal swiftly with anyone who threatens national security on the basis that national peace is essential.
عمليات تصعيدية حصلت مع الأسف.
With deep regret, tension has escalated in Khan Yunis and today in Gaza Strip. These incidents are absolutely regrettable. We gave orders to the security forces to deal swiftly with anyone who tries to carry out such acts. It is very unfortunate that some groups try to incite or cause instability.
The Palestinian Prime Minister, Ismail Haniyeh, also called for ending this tense situation. He said that the Palestinian weapons must not be pointed at the Palestinian people and called for self-restraint by all factions. A crowd of professors and faculty from a number of universities in the Gaza Strip came to Haniyeh's office to express their solidarity with the government against the international siege. Haniyeh told them that he talked directly with the leaders of both the groups to overcome this crisis.
Our Palestinian young men must have a sense of responsibility, and our resistance factions, who we hold dear, must stand up to the dangerous challenges that the Palestinian plight is going through. I have called for an urgent meeting between the leaders of the two movements by request of the Prime Minister. We are preparing to arrange this meeting.
The leadership of the Fatah movement also called for an end to the bloodshed. They also called for containing the security breakdown.
We need a unified Palestinian position that reflects the strength of the Palestinian people, not the opposite. I believe that the essential national and ethical question is being asked of the Hamas movement and the Palestinian government.
In the face of this violence, the Palestinians have no other choice but to have a national dialogue to end this tension. Only this will result in a real calm in accordance to the law, which is supposed to be above everyone.
We are joined by our correspondent from Khan Yunis, Muhammad Judah. Good evening, Muhammad.
Good evening.
How is the general mood in Khan Yunis?
The security situation is relatively calm in the town of New Abbasan, east of the municipality of Khan Yunis. However, there is still some tension in Abbasan, the site of today's incidents. Earlier in the day, some clashes were reported in parts of the city between Fatah and Hamas, injuring several people from both sides. The clashes started when a funeral procession for Hamada al-Daghma and Mohammed al-Jurif, two of Hamas's martyrs, came under fire. While mourners returned from the Abbasan cemetery, some youth came across a roadside bomb near the gravesite. Then some groups opened fire on the youth, injuring Arkan al-Daghma, who sustained gunshot wounds to the abdomen. Soon afterward, an exchange of fire erupted between some armed men at the funeral and the assailants, injuring 3 people. Meanwhile, security and political blocs in the municipality of Khan Yunis called for restraint and urged both Hamas and Fatah officials to defuse the problem, contain the situation, and put an end to this crisis. Moreover, a number of Palestinian officials met with Hamas and Fatah leaders, asking them to resort to dialogue instead of violence, put an end to internal fighting, stop the bloodshed, and quell the conflict before it spirals out of control, which will have negative repercussions for all Palestinians.
Iran should wise up and stop threatening to wipe Israel off the map. That's the word from Vice Premier Shimon Peres, who said countries that threaten to destroy other countries can themselves be destroyed. Peres urged the international community to come together and stop Tehran from acquiring nuclear weapons know-how before it's too late.
Now, when it comes to destruction, Iran too can be destroyed. I don't suggest to say an eye for an eye. I would say 2 open eyes, instead of a single eye trying to take out another eye from somebody else. And I believe that if there will be a unified position of the international community, Iran will take it seriously. They make now a mockery of the world position because they think it's not unified, it's divided. They can play around.
Life in prison without parole. That's the sentence handed down by a Los Angeles judge to Benjamin Frodson for the murder of 2 Israelis. Ben Wurzberger and Adar Naaman were killed in December of 2002 by Frodson and Shane Huang of Los Angeles. Their bodies were discovered almost a year later in a shallow grave near Barstow, California. Huang also was convicted of the double homicide, and he faces the same life sentence. It was former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon who asked Dan Meridor to drop a report outlining Israel's defense strategy for the next decade. Meridor, a former justice minister, spent years in the government and the Knesset overseeing Israel's secret services. The so-called Meridor report, a 250-page document, most of it classified, was recently presented to Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, who accepted the recommendations made by Meridor and over 20 senior security and political officials who served on his committee. Talking to IBA's Leah Zinder, Meridor said Israel has handled its security needs extremely well for close to 6 decades, but the rules of the game have changed.
Most of our enemies understood there's no way they can get rid of us, which is why we have peace with Egypt, with Jordan, good relationship with some other Arab countries, negotiation with others. So basically it was a process that is built on our strength, military, economic, political, and so forth. On the other hand, in recent years, you've seen development of the different axes of Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, again speaking of destruction of Israel, throwing the Jews to the sea, as their old slogan was, and you hear it spoken very clearly. So there are other countries and nations or movements who continue, not in the regular warfare. This, I think they know they lost, but they moved the conflict to 2 different levels, below conventional terror and above conventional nuclear. And this is why our challenge regarding our defense position is not what it used to be. It's the Iranian challenge on one side and terror on the other side.
Would you say that Iran today poses the greatest existential threat to Israel?
As we don't seem to have a conventional threat because we are much stronger than our enemies, the threat that may be existential is if Iran ever gets to a nuclear military capability, coupled with their ideology of wiping Israel off the map. This together is no doubt a major challenge, which is why we need to do what we can to stop the process on which they are marching. And doing that, we may be helped, not only for our interest, but for the world's interest by other forces, including the United States, Europe, maybe Russia. It's the beginning of a battle, it's not the end of a battle.
ونعود إلى سياق نشرتنا وكنا في الملف.
On the Iranian file, the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad criticized Washington's policies on many international issues. In his letter to the American president, he confirmed that democracy, which was adopted by the West, has failed. Meanwhile, Iranian citizens called on White House officials to deal with the letter intelligently and reasonably.
Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is a man of surprises. He surprised the world by announcing that Iran had completed a nuclear fuel cycle and had joined the world's nuclear club. His letter, which was likened to the Khomeini letter that was sent to Gorbachev's democratic Russia to announce the failure of Western liberalism and democracy. Ahmadinejad's letter criticized Washington's policies on a number of international issues, including the war in Iraq and the support of the Israeli occupation entity. According to Ahmadinejad, the letter came as an expression of increased domestic solidarity and conscientiousness about how to deal with the world crisis.
للأزمات العالمية وطرق حلها.
Our letter included the words and aspirations of our people as well as their opinions about international issues. It offers a general view of how to resolve world crises. We are now waiting for a response from the other side. When that happens, we will make the appropriate decisions.
In the letter, the Iranian president asked Washington why every technological and scientific achievement in the Middle East is viewed as a threat to the Israeli entity. Why does the U.S. deprive the people from making achievements when it only increases public hate of the United States?
They oppose us for having peaceful nuclear technology, while they have it and want it exclusively for themselves. Iran must be decisive on this issue.
If the American president continues to be stubborn and continues his current policies, then I do not think that the letter will have any effect. However, if he changes his position, then the opposite will be true.
I support any ways or means to reduce international tensions.
Some observers view Ahmadinejad's letter as an indication that Iran has entered a new phase in which it has begun to speak directly with the country that has declared animosity towards it. The men of the White House must read the letter and what is between the lines rather than being preoccupied about its timing and short-lived effects, especially when considering what the Iranian president said, that throughout history, unjust and oppressive governments eventually faded.
The Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has written U.S. President George W. Bush an 18-page letter discussing religious values, history, and international relations. The following is a translation of excerpts from the original written in Farsi. Mr. George Bush, for some time now I have been thinking how one can justify the undeniable contradictions that exist in the international arena. Those have prompted me to discuss some of the contradictions and questions in the hopes that it might bring about an opportunity to redress them. Can one be a follower of Jesus Christ and feel obliged to respect human rights, present liberalism and a civilization model, announce one's opposition to the proliferation of nuclear weapons and WMDs, make war on terror his slogan, but have countries attacked, the lives, reputations, and possessions of people destroyed, or because of the possibility of the existence of WMDs in one country, have it occupied? Around 100,000 people killed, its water sources, agriculture, and industry destroyed, close to 180,000 foreign troops put on the ground, sanctity of private homes of citizens broken, and the country pushed back perhaps 50 years. Of course, Saddam was a murderous dictator, but the war was not waged to topple him. Mr. President, I'm sure you know how and at what cost Israel was established. Many thousands were killed in the process. Millions of indigenous people were made homeless. A regime has been established which does not show mercy even to kids, destroys houses while the occupants are still in them, announces beforehand its list and plans to assassinate Palestinian figures, and keeps thousands of Palestinians in prison. The newly elected Palestinian administration recently took office. All independent observers have confirmed that this government represents the electorate. If the current Palestinian government had run on the above platform, would the Palestinian people have voted for it? The people are also saying, why are all UNSC resolutions in condemnation of Israel vetoed?
The Egyptian security forces killed the leader of an Islamic group suspected of carrying out the bombing attacks that targeted tourist attractions in the Sinai Peninsula during the past 18 months. Nasser Khamis al-Malahi was killed in clashes with security forces in the Arish mountain north of Sinai. The Egyptian authority also arrested his right-hand man, Mohammed Abdullah Alian, who was considered to be the mastermind behind the Sinai explosions. Both men, whose names appeared on a wanted list containing the names of 25 suspects in the aftermath of the Sinai explosions are believed to be members of the Tawheed and Jihad group. A group of Iraqi female parliamentary members held a press conference calling for the rights of women and calling for women to be given an executive position that allows them to participate with men in policy-making decisions, considering that women make up more than half of society. Details with Fadi Matar.
Iraqi women refused to allow females to be marginalized in political life. In a press conference with female parliamentary members, Maysoon al-Damlouch, a member of National Iraqi List, demanded that a woman be given an executive position at the level of Deputy Prime Minister as an essential step in implementing the law.
We are requesting that one of our Iraqi women leaders be appointed to the executive position of Deputy Prime Minister. We want a woman to be in an executive position so that she can participate in the implementation of the law so that we can both be on the safe side.
Member Safiya Sahel, also a member of the National List, pointed out that women make up more than half our society. She revealed a plan to oppose articles of the Constitution that do not guarantee the rights of women. She also plans to address the issues of family and personal law.
From this platform, as an Iraqi woman, I say that we must confirm that Iraqi women are more than half of society. Thus, denying women's rights of political representation is in effect denying half of society their legitimate representation in the political process. This is unacceptable. We will oppose all the articles of the Constitution that do not guarantee women's rights. We will submit a review of the personal status laws.
It is understood that the Constitution allocates 25% of the parliament to women.
Khira bin Daoud, an Algerian legend, joined the freedom fighters to defend her country against the French occupation. She joined the liberation movement in the aftermath of the May 8, 1945 French massacres. She sponsored dozens of children who lost loved ones in the massacres of Kharata and Stufukini.
المجاهدة خير بن داود مرأة وهرانية غنية من مواليد سنة
Khayra bin Daoud, an Algerian freedom fighter, was born in 1916 in the town of Wahran. She joined the national movement and became a legend in the fight against the French occupation. She joined the liberation revolution and fought alongside Algerian freedom fighters in the area of Wahran. Khayra and other mujahideen, such as Haj Mutehri and Qadi Siti bin Halima, have sponsored dozens of orphan children who lost loved ones in the May 8, 1945 massacres in the state of Gilma.
عشرات اليتامى من أبناء شهداء تلك المجازر الأليمة.
Khira was a freedom fighter who gave money to help the orphans and the Algerian Revolution. I was one of the orphans who benefited from her generosity. I was 4 years old in 1945. She sponsored nearly 30 orphans in the area of Wahran.
In 1957, the French intelligence agency expelled her from Wahran to the Algerian capital of Algiers for affiliating with the Algerian Liberation Revolution and sponsoring children of the martyrs.
The French intelligence agency arrested her in 1957 on charges of sponsoring families of Algerian martyrs killed in the 1945 massacres. The French gave her 1 month to leave Wahran.
After several years in Algiers, she returned to Wahran and she was put under house arrest until she passed away in 1960.
Everyone knew the legendary story of Khira bin Daoud. While in Algeria, she got sick and she was allowed to come back home. She stayed in that house until she died.
Khira bin Daoud was born and raised in this neighborhood.
The memory of Khaira bin Dawood, the mother of the orphans, will live forever, and she will continue to be a good example of charity, sacrifice, and solidarity.
على الرغم من المعاناة اليومية التي يسببها الاحتلال الإسرائيلي يقبل الفلسطينيون بثقة على الحياة.
Despite the daily hardship caused by the Israeli occupation, Palestinians confidently embrace life. They teach their children music in the hope of a better future. The Edward Said National Conservatory of Music is organizing a music contest for soloists in honor of notable Lebanese composer and artist Marcel Khalife. About 200 children are participating in the event. The contest will include piano, oud, and violin performances. Musicians from different parts of the world are judging. The objective is to encourage and challenge creativity and excellence in music among young Palestinians.
في الموسيقى بين البراعم الفلسطينية.
تنساب الموسيقى وتتردد الأنغام.
Music mixed with clapping echoes in the halls of the Culture Center Theater in Beit Hanina in East Jerusalem. The performers are Palestinian children who came from Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza to compete in a national contest for solo performance in honor of renowned Lebanese composer Marcel Khalifa.
اللبناني ذو الصيت مارسيل خليفة.
المسابقة مهمة جدا.
This competition is very important. The students who come here get exposed to other students and they compare their level of skill to them. Perhaps they can say that their level is better than the other students, or they may meet a teacher they admire.
في مقتبل العمر
Samir Safri is a young boy who is sending a message saying that Palestinians enjoy life and love the arts. They do not support violence as Israel and its supporters in the West portray them. Samir's fingertips gracefully play compositions by Chopin and Beethoven on the piano while his 9-year-old sister dances to the sound.
ذات 9 سنوات بالرقص أثناء العزف.
كنت أسمع أخوي بدق
I used to hear my brother play the piano, and I learned from him. I really liked the piano. I would hear and watch what effects it had on me. I started to learn, and I set my mind on learning Chopin and Beethoven.
سامر الصبي الفلسطيني شغف بالموسيقى مبكرا.
Samir, the Palestinian boy, started showing interest in music at a young age and learned the piano on his own. He searched for Beethoven symphonies in the internet and taught them to himself piece by piece. His mother played a major role in his musical development, which is shared by his siblings. Samir's mother sits watching him and her 2 other children with pride.
أنا من هم صغار المزبوط ولادي دائما بشجعهم إنه
I encourage my children to play any musical instrument. Since my oldest son Sari started playing the piano, I encourage the other ones to play the piano because we had a piano. It was never a must, like they had to take piano lessons, but I was so lucky that all 3 liked the piano.
The participants were well received by the audience and were given medals. 57 received monetary prizes. The rest only received applause, which was the objective of the competition.
There are some great performances. Of course, the talent level was different, and some were disappointed. But generally, I say to those who didn't win any prizes, a job well done, and it is great that you can play an instrument.
It was not important for many of them to earn prizes. More importantly, they wanted to participate in an event that Marcel Khalifa was part of. It was he who sang for the country and for freedom, inspiring Palestinian children in the competition to hope for an independent and free homeland.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin. This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.